When my uncle, Father Emilio Alvarez, disappeared from the pulpit in 1965, the Vatican sent 2 men to close the case within days. The official statement said he suffered a mental break and wandered off into the mountains near Ávila, Spain. But the villagers knew better. Some claimed they saw him weeks later, barefoot, whispering Latin in the cemetery, to something no one else could see. I was only a child then, but his name haunted my family like a stain no one could scrub out. We weren't allowed to talk about him. My father, his younger brother, kept a locked trunk in the attic labeled "Property of the Diocese, Do Not Open." He never opened it, even after he drank himself to death in 1994. When I finally pried it open 25 years later, I understood why no one in our family ever spoke his name again. Inside were 3 things: a leather-bound diary, a silver rosary that burned my fingers on contact, and a reel-to-reel tape in a cloth sleeve. The reel had a single word scrawled in faded black ink: Pacto. My hands shook when I saw it. I didn't know what it meant yet, just that it radiated something awful. But it was the diary that first drew me in. Unlike the rosary, it didn't physically hurt to hold, but every page I turned made something colder settle into the back of my neck. The entries started normally: sermon notes, records of confessions, arguments with the bishop. Then, around March 1965, something changed. He stopped referencing God. Instead, he started writing about the other light, the flame behind the flame, and a presence that visited him in his dreams, whispering, "Videre est videre," to see is to be seen. At first I thought he was going mad, but one page, dated April 11th, was written entirely backward. When I held it up to the mirror, it read, "I have accepted the terms." I stopped reading after that, but not for long. Over the next few nights, I had dreams I can't explain. A figure in black robes watched me from behind a veil of smoke. Sometimes he was in my old school, sometimes in the confessional booth, always silent, always waiting. On the 4th night, I woke up with 3 small scratches on my wrist. I lived alone. I don't sleepwalk. That was the night I finally played the tape. I had to borrow an old reel-to-reel player from a collector in Madrid. When the recording started, it sounded like any standard confession. My uncle's voice, clear, measured, calm. He began reciting scripture, but it didn't sound like he was reading it, more like he was interrogating it. "They say the Word became flesh," he said. "But what of the flesh that became Word?" I almost stopped there. But then, about 3 minutes in, a second voice faded in. Not louder, not clearer, just deeper, as if it had always been in the room and only now chose to let itself be heard. "I give myself in service of knowing," my uncle said. The other voice responded, "Then you are known." What followed was not a ritual. It was a transaction. Terms, conditions. My uncle pledged his soul, but not for power, for answers, forbidden knowledge. "Show me what man was never meant to know," he said. Then came screaming. Not his. Dozens of voices, layered, tormented, echoing, then silence, and then laughing, high-pitched, female, childlike. The tape ended abruptly. The reel kept spinning until I pulled the plug out of the wall. I tried burning the tape the next morning. It didn't burn. The diary blackened at the edges but never fully caught fire. I buried both in a tin lockbox under my garden, thinking it was over. But over the following week, strange things began happening around the house. My crucifix fell from the wall, twice. My dog refused to enter my bedroom, and I kept waking at 3:33 a.m., always gasping, heart racing, sure I'd heard a whisper just before I opened my eyes. On the 8th night, I dug up the box again. The diary had more pages than I remembered, entries I hadn't seen. One had today's date. It described exactly what I had done, burning, burying, even the dream. and at the bottom, in a language I didn't recognize, was a sentence scratched in what looked like dried blood. I photographed it and sent it to a Jesuit scholar I trusted. He called me that night, shaken. He said the phrase was a variation of a sentence from a forbidden exorcism rite, one that the Church outlawed in the 18th century. Loosely translated, it read, "He who bargains for truth shall host the lie." He warned me not to read any more, to return the items to the church. I agreed, but I didn't follow through. I kept the diary beside my bed that night. Around 4 a.m., I woke up to the sound of pages flipping. The window was closed. No fan, no breeze. Yet the diary lay open to a fresh entry. In my uncle's handwriting, it read, "He has accepted. Let the trial begin." That was the moment I realized something wasn't just haunting me. It was evaluating me. I wasn't just reading his dissent, I was repeating it. Each entry felt like a map, and I was walking the path he had walked. Worse, I couldn't stop. Every time I tried to lock the diary away or toss it out, I'd hear scratching from inside whatever container I used, like something alive was waiting to get out. I contacted the church archives in Ávila to find any mention of Father Emilio's disappearance. Most of the records had been destroyed in a mysterious fire in 1971, but one retired archivist agreed to meet me in person. He handed me a photo, black and white, blurred. Taken in 1965, a week before my uncle vanished. It showed the congregation standing outside the church after Mass. My uncle was in the background, standing behind himself. The same robes, the same face, but the eyes were pitch black. After I saw that photo, my uncle standing behind himself, something inside me broke. I returned home with the sickening sense that whatever had taken him was watching me now. That night, I placed the diary in a locked drawer and tried to ignore it. But around midnight, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not creaks, actual steps, measured, pacing. I live alone. I walked out with a kitchen knife, heart pounding. No one was there, but the drawer was open. The diary was lying on the floor, opened to the final page. The handwriting was erratic, smeared with what looked like ash. The words were barely readable. "The light of the lie burns brighter than truth. Do not seek, do not knock. He waits where silence ends." Beneath it was a symbol I hadn't seen before. A spiral fused with a crucifix, etched deep enough to scratch the paper below. My phone rang. Unknown number. Against all logic, I answered. On the other end, a low, static hum. Then my uncle's voice, "You opened the door. Now they can enter through you." The line went dead. I threw the phone across the room. I contacted the Jesuit scholar again, desperate. I asked about the symbol. His voice was cold, resigned. "That's not a symbol," he said. "It's a seal. It's only drawn once, at the end of a pact. It means the contract has transferred. Transferred, not ended." That's when I realized I hadn't inherited the diary. I'd inherited the deal. My uncle didn't vanish. He passed it on. Somehow, through blood, through proximity, through the act of listening. Maybe that's how this thing spreads. Through voices, through stories, through people like me, and maybe people like you. I haven't slept in 3 nights. The rosary from the trunk still burns to the touch. Last night the tape began playing on its own. No power, no tape deck. Just the sound, from inside the walls. My hands are shaking as I write this because I know the final stage is coming. That's how my uncle described it. The reckoning of flesh. And I hear it now. A whisper beneath all noise, calling me by name, offering answers I'm too afraid to hear. This may be the last thing I ever write. If you're listening to this, I'm begging you. Don't go looking for the recording. Don't search the diary. Don't try to prove this story is real, because it doesn't need belief to exist. Only attention. He who bargains for truth shall host the lie. That lie is already here, and it's waiting for the next listener. If you've made it this far, remember, some doors open just by listening. If you feel something cold behind you, don't turn around. If you hear a voice whisper your name tonight, don't answer it. There are stories that entertain, and then there are stories that invite. Be careful which ones you bring into your home, and if you ever find an old tape marked Pacto, burn it before it plays you. This is the Unholy Ones. Until next time, stay in the light.